It's good to see you again. Hope you're keeping well. Today, in your fourth history lesson done through remote learning, we're going to take a look at having a go at our first piece of writing. Now, it's going to be a 16-mark question. We're going to do it in a very similar way that you would have done it if you were in lesson. So we're going to start it together. We're going to write the first opening paragraph together. Then you're going to finish it independently. Now, how you complete the work today is up to you. If you prefer to write it, you can get a piece of paper. You can write the work as we go on the paper. Then at the end, just like you did in lesson 3, you can take a picture of your answer and submit it through Google Classroom so your teacher can read it and give you feedback on it. Or, if you prefer, you can type your answer into the document that is attached to the Google Classroom assignment. I'm going to be typing it so it's a bit easier for you to read at home. You can type it straight in if you think that's easier and then submit that to Google Classroom. But it's entirely up to you which way you prefer. Now, just like we would at the start of any lesson, we're going to make a start with a retrieval revision quiz. So can you pause the video now? Can you read each of those questions carefully? And can you have a go at answering them? Remember, even if you're not sure what the answer is, or even if you're only 50% sure, try and have that smart guess. Try and get something down because that's a really good strategy to build long-term memory. Pause the video now and have a go at each of these questions. Excellent, so let's go through the answers. So, number 1. Harald Hardrada, the Viking king, had a complicated claim to the English throne because of a deal involving King Canute. 2. Harold Godwinson, the former Earl of Wessex and eventual King of England, Harold Godwinson, was chosen by the Witan, which is why he thought he should be king, or one of the reasons why. 3 is a description of Edgar the Atheling. He was a nephew to Edward the Confessor, so he thought he should be king, though the Witan didn't choose him because he was very inexperienced and young. 4 is Khrushchev's secret speech. In the speech, Khrushchev criticised Stalin for being too cruel on the satellite states and the people in communism. So, when the people of Hungary heard about those criticisms, they thought Khrushchev was going to be weaker, so they started to protest. 5 is Imre Nagy, though it's spelled Nagy. 6, the Hungarian uprising, was in 1956. 7, Thomas Sydenham was a man who advanced the work of physicians in the Renaissance by telling them to observe patients, and treat what was causing their illness, not just the individual symptoms. 8, the Great Plague struck in London in 1665. 9 is a definition of quarantine, a way to combat the spread of infectious diseases. One that's really appropriate for today as well. 10 is a description of the left-wing uprising which failed, the 1919 Spartacist revolt of Weimar Germany. Now 11, there are actually 2 answers which would be correct. There is one right-wing nationalist uprising known as the Cat Putsch. It failed in 1920. Or you could have written actually as well, Hitler's failed Munich Putsch of 1923. Both are good examples of failed right-wing nationalist uprisings in Weimar Germany. Then finally, number 12, the French invaded the Ruhr, spelled R-U-H-R, and they invaded because Germany had failed to make reparations payments that were part of the Treaty of Versailles. Please make sure you've self-checked and corrected every one of those starter quiz questions to make sure these key bits of information are lodged securely in your long-term memory. Right, let's take a look at the question we're going to have a go at answering today. The question is, the main reason for William's victory in the Battle of Hastings was the superior strength of his military. How far do you agree? Now, the way the question works is you are given that statement at the top, and you're asked is, do you agree with it? Do you think that's the correct way to understand that event? Now, the way you organise 16-mark questions are exactly the same as how you organise them in your Medicine Through Time paper. This type of question comes up on Medicine Through Time and the Norman Conquest. Now, you start by having a clear introduction. We'll write one together in a moment. Your introduction needs to introduce the 3 different things you're going to talk about, and it needs to introduce your opinion on the question. Then you write 3 separate topic paragraphs. Those topic paragraphs each will look at different ways you can answer that question. Finally, you'll have your conclusion, where you sum up your view on the statement, saying do you agree with it or do you disagree with it. Now, a brilliant 16-mark question will have really good subject knowledge, but it will also be really well balanced, and you'll look at the strengths and the weaknesses of the different points of view, and your opinion will run all the way through it. Now, the 4 different things you can write about in this question are the 4 different things we planned last lesson. So you should hopefully have your work from last lesson in front of you. If you don't, pause the video now and get that work. It's going to be really, really helpful when doing this writing. Now, the 4 topics we planned were these. We said one of the reasons William won was the superior strength of his army, which is a 1 in the statement. We also said he won because of his leadership and his tactics. We also said King Harold made mistakes. We also said there was an element of luck. Now, I've put a star next to the superior strength of the Norman army because we have to write about that topic. That is the one in the statement in the question, so we need to discuss it. But you also need 2 other reasons, and you can pick the 2 you know the best out of the other 3. So have a think. Which are the 2 you know best? Maybe make a note of them, because they're going to be the ones you write about. Now, if you're going to type your answer along with me, what I would like you to do now is open the document. It should look like this. Now, the boxes which are grey are the boxes which I would like you to type directly into. Every box that is grey should have some writing from you before you submit it. Now, on the left of each table, you've got short prompts where you can see little reminders about what each part of the answer needs to do. If you're deciding to do this work on paper, that's great. I'd like you to please make notes in the margin, which are the same as those on the end of the table. Those little prompts are going to help you to make sure, almost like a tick list, you've done all the correct things for a brilliant 16-mark answer. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type the start of the answers, the start of a few bits directly into here. I'd like you to type it or to write it as we go. We're going to do the first 2 sections together, then you're going to do your next parts completely independently. Remember though, you should have those notes in front of you because this isn't a memory test. You can definitely use these, or you can look back at your work from the last week to help you with specific details and subject knowledge. So, let's make a start. Now I'm going to read the question one more time so it's clear in all of our heads. The main reason for William's victory in the Battle of Hastings was the superior strength of his military. Now we need to start with our introduction. Now our introduction should be really short, and it only needs to do 2 things. First, we can see here, introduce the topics you are going to talk about. So, we can say, it is clear that the strength of William's army, already made a typo, that's a great start. It is clear that the strength of William's army helped him to win the Battle of Hastings due to the speed of his cavalry. Now there, I've introduced the first topic, the idea that William had a stronger army. Now we also need to write about 2 other things. Now I said you could choose the topics that you know the best, the 2 that you want to write about. So I'm going to leave gaps in my sentences. I want you to fill in the gaps with what you want to write about. So you could say, however, William also won due to or Now in those gaps you want to choose between luck, King Harold Godwinson's mistakes, or William's superior leadership and tactics. Pick the two you know the best. Now that you've done that, you've got one more job that your introduction needs to do. You need to introduce your opinion on the question. So you need to say whether you agree or whether you disagree with the idea that the main reason he won was because of the superior strength of his military. So the way you do that is you say, this answer will argue that the main reason William won the Battle of Hastings was because. Now I want you to finish off that sentence by filling in the gap with the one you choose and a short explanation as to why you've picked that. Don't go beyond that one sentence. In total, your introduction should only be about 3 sentences long. Can you finish off your introduction now? Pause the video while you finish it. Excellent. Right, we're going to write our first topic paragraph together. Now the topic paragraphs follow a very similar structure. They do the same thing every time. So we'll do one together, then you're going to follow those instructions. You're going to follow that model with your own ideas to finish off your 16-mark question. We'll then check in again to do the conclusion. Now if you take a look again, you've got a table for topic paragraph 1 together. On the left, you've got some reminders about what each thing needs to do. And on the right, you've got a grey box where you can type directly in. Again, if you're doing it on paper, that's brilliant. Please just annotate what you're doing along in the margin. So, it says, we start with a topic sentence. We need to introduce the topic of the paragraph and we need to suggest how strong the evidence is. So we're going to start with the topic in the question, because the one in the question you have to write about, so it makes sense to write about it first, just in case you're running out of time in the exam. So we can say, there is a lot of evidence to suggest William won the battle due to his army being stronger than Harold Godwinson's. Clear sentence, introduces what the paragraph's going to be about. It's going to be about his army being strong. And I've suggested how much evidence is. I've said there's a lot of evidence. Now, when you write your own sentences later, you might disagree. You might say there's only a bit of evidence, or only some. That's fine. Now, the next step is where you need your detailed subject knowledge. Now, remember what good subject knowledge looks like. Names, dates, keywords, details, facts. To help you with this, look back on your notes from lesson 1 or lesson 2. Or use that sheet from before. So, I need good detailed subject knowledge that proves William might have had a stronger army than Harold Godwinson. So have a think yourself. How could you argue that William might have had a stronger army than Harold Godwinson? Well, I'm going to start with his 800 knights and cavalry, because I know a good few keywords and details about that. So I could say something like, the Norman army had 800 well-trained knights fighting on horseback. These experienced soldiers had a height and speed advantage over the Anglo-Saxons. Now, I want a really good detail, so I'm going to go with the detail I had about the number of mercenaries. So I'm going to say they were also supported by 4,000 to 6,000 mercenaries. Now I want to put in that detail about the Gonfanon as well, because I think that's a good keyword to show off my subject knowledge. So I'm also going to say the Normans, I'm going to say the Norman army also had the ability to communicate easily using their Gonfanon flags. Now that's probably enough. There's plenty of details. Oh, I've just noticed I said 900 instead of 800 knights. There's good details, there's good keywords, there's really good specifics. I've shown somebody reading my work that I know about the Battle of Hastings and I've got those details. Now the next step is where we refer to the question. It's where we explain why all of that good subject knowledge answers the question. Now we're not repeating those details, we're explaining why. There's a fine difference. Now the way to do that is to use words from the question and the word because. So I'm going to say something like, and you can use this sentence starter later, therefore, this helped William's victory because. Now we explain why all of that helped William to win. Therefore, this helped William's victory because the speed of the cavalry allowed them to use the feigned retreat tactic and allowed them to overpower the Anglo-Saxon fighters who were on foot. Now look how detailed and how long and how well explained that RQ is. It shouldn't be a short little sentence. If we're aiming for top marks, it should be well developed. Now so far, our paragraph does a really good job at explaining why we could say that the superior strengths of William's army helped him to win. But I said at the start of the video that we really want this question, our answer, to have balance. So we need to look at both sides of the argument. We need to say why maybe this reason isn't true. Now we planned this in our limitations section in lesson 3. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to look at the balance about why that is maybe not true. Now the key word for this is pretty much always however. So I'm going to say however. It may not be the case that the Norman army was stronger than the Anglo-Saxon one, as Harold had more soldiers, as he had 6,000 to 7,000 in his feud, including fens and housecarls, who were well trained and well equipped. They also carried heavy axes that could decapitate horses and fight well against the cavalry. So we call that our limitations. That's the limitations on this argument, the balance. Now finally, what a brilliant 16-mark answer will do is refer to your argument at the end of every topic paragraph. Now what that means is the opinion you gave in the introduction, the one thing you said that was the main reason why William won, you want to return to that idea at the end of every topic paragraph and try and use that topic paragraph to prove your view is right. So there are two ways to go about this. If you think that the main reason why he won was that his army was stronger, then you will want to use a sentence starter. This is the main reason William won because, and briefly explain why therefore that means it's the main reason. Or, if you haven't chosen that reason as the main one why you think William won the Battle of Hastings, then you need to compare the topic reason with the one you think is strongest. So you need to compare the strengths of William's army to the one you think is the strongest. So if you don't agree that this is the main reason, you would say, this shows, or you could say, pardon me, you would say, therefore, this is not the main reason William won because. And try and make a direct link or direct comparison to the one you think is the main reason. Now, the best way to do this is to use the connection sheet we used last lesson. I'll make it large on the screen to remind you. This was mine, you should have your own. But if you use these links in your RA, you're going to have a very well-developed point. Okay, right. What I'm going to ask you to do now is to work more independently. I'd now like you to write paragraph 2 completely independently. If you're doing it on the computer, type it into those grey boxes. If you're doing it on the paper, keep writing. Then I'd like you to write paragraph 3. Now for the paragraph 3 document, I haven't given you those prompts on the left. I would like you to have a go at doing it from memory. Try and remember the structure you've practiced. But do keep checking and do scroll up and have a peek if you absolutely need to. What you need to do now is pause this video and write your second and third paragraph about the topics you know most about. Pause this video and finish your writing now. Excellent. Right, now that you've finished your 3 topic paragraphs, we've got one more thing to do. The last bit, and it's really quite straightforward, is writing your conclusion. Now your conclusion needs to say whether you agree or disagree with the statement in the question. And you can say you mostly agree, completely agree, or like the opposite, mostly disagree or completely disagree. When you're writing it, I'd like you to use a sentence starter at the top first. Then, the second thing a conclusion needs to do is to briefly say why. And the best way to do that is to try and make connections between the topics. Again, I've given you some prompts on the document where you're writing your answer. But as well, I've given you some of these sentence starters as well. So try to really hammer home, whichever one you've chosen, really explain why you think that's the main reason William won the Battle of Hastings. Pause the video now and write your conclusion. Fantastic. Right. Now that you've finished your answer, I want to say a big well done on completing your second week of remote learning in history. I know it's not perfect, but your perseverance has been absolutely brilliant. Me and the other history teachers, we've been really, really impressed. We've been happy to answer your emails, and we've been really enjoying actually giving feedback on the hard work you've been doing at home. Enjoy a brilliant Easter break. You've absolutely earned it. Hopefully we'll be back at school after Easter, but I don't know at the time of recording. Hopefully I'll see you soon. If we're not back in school, then we'll be doing some more remote learning lessons afterwards, looking about what life is like in Norman England. Now that William has defeated his challengers, now that William is the King of England, how does he change it, and how does he start to deal with some of the challenges facing him? Again, well done for completing the work. I look forward to reading your answers. Enjoy your Easter break.